Roll call.
Mayor Lara,
Present.
Vice Mayor Parsons,
Present.
Commissioner Landry,
Present.
Commissioner Vasquez,
Here.
Commissioner Warren.
Here.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation. Would you do the honors, Ron?
Okay, thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day that you've given us, the nice weather and rain occasionally. It helps with the heat, and we just ask that you'll be with everyone that's here when they go out that to do their work, that they're safe, and be with the city employees and the staff, and be with the citizens of this community, and be with this commission tonight as we make decisions for this city, that you will guide us and give us direction, and we just ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Item number 1, awards, proclamations, and presentations. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 2, approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as printed.
A second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Vasquez and a second by Commissioner Landry. Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0, motion passes. Moving on to item number 3, the minutes.
Go ahead. No, sorry.
I'll make a motion, we approve the July 23rd, 2024 regular meeting minute.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Vasquez and a second by Vice Mayor Parsons. Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0, motion passes. Item number 4, items from citizens. Are there any items from citizens? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5, items from groups. Are there any items from groups? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 6, the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Landry. Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0, motion passes. Moving on to item number 7, Resolution 2417, Solar Project Offering for Sale of General Obligation Temporary Notes.
So Mayor and Commissioners, on February 27th, 2024, the City Commission voted unanimously to move forward with the solar energy project. In conjunction with both Gilmore and Bell and Ranson Financial Group, we've drafted a tentative financing schedule, those are in your packets, and a resolution to move forward with plans to take out a general obligation temporary note for a maximum of 3 years in order to cover construction costs and reimburse our 1-cent sales tax fund 260 for the startup funding that we already dispersed. Once the IRS direct pay is received in 2025, hopefully we will pay down the temporary note and bond the remaining balance as planned. Larry Kleeman with Ranson Financial Group is here to answer any further questions that you may have.
And I would just add in that we've been financial advisor for the city over many years, and it's a pretty straightforward process. We'll, as your financial advisor, will take competitive bids from various underwriters and banks, and then we'll be back here next month, September 10th, I believe, to provide you the bids. And at that time, you can approve the best interest rate, the lowest interest rate. Just a few basics. This is a 3-year note, as Scarlett mentioned, and the interest is included in the temp note, so you don't have to worry about budgeting for it. And it can be prepaid after 1 year or whenever you guys are ready to move forward with bonding. So happy to answer any other questions.
Are we going to be making any payments on it during the process?
They're semi-annual, 2 payments a year while it's outstanding for 3 years. So, but again, the interest for that is built into the temp note, so you can make those payments.
Any other questions? Okay.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution number 2417, authorizing the offering for sale of general obligation temporary notes Series 2024 of the City of Liberal, Kansas.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Parsons and a second by Commissioner Vasquez. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? 5-0, motion passes. Moving on to item number 8, resolution number 2418, RHID Larry and Hickory Streets.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As you'll recall, we attempted this last year with the Larry and Hickory Streets, but there did have to be a replat of that area because of the entrance. So the replat has been completed, and we're ready to set this for a public hearing for September 24th.
24th?
Yeah.
And with that, we'll provide notices before the hearing.
So the resolution tonight just basically just establishes a public hearing. Is that right?
Yes.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution number 2418 as presented, setting a public hearing for the establishment of the district and adoption of the development plan on September 24th, 2024 at 5:30 PM.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Vasquez and a second by Commissioner Landry. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? All in favor? All opposed? 5-0, motion passes. Moving on to item number 9, the floodplain presentation.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Joe File. I'm with Benish, and I'm here tonight to talk to you about the floodplain mapping update that we've been working on for the city. So what I'd like to do is go through a little bit of the history first as to how we got here. In the 1970s, your floodplains were mapped using federal funds for the first time. And in 1990, you got your first flood insurance rate map. That's the first time these floodplains were put on the map. And that'd be about the same time frame when you were able to use these maps to administer insurance requirements under the flood insurance rate program. In 2009, FEMA came in and they did an update to the flood insurance rate maps. And prior to that, you would have had maps just for the city of Liberal. And in that late 2000s, early 2010s era, FEMA changed course and went to the county-wide map where all communities and jurisdictional boundaries within a county were mapped county-wide. At that time, Liberal's floodplains were redelineated. They weren't restudied, the elevations weren't changed, the water surface elevations weren't. But the boundaries were delineated on 2-foot contour topography, so you got a little bit better delineation of the boundaries. But that was still from a study in 1986. So the floodplain maps that you have today was for engineering that was done in 1986. And since that time, in 2009, there have been 65 letters of map change. Some of those would be LOMAs from individual homeowners trying to get their homes out of the floodplain. Some of those would have been letters of map revisions driven by city development in order to revise the floodplain maps to continue to develop and also to recognize all of the flood control improvements that the city has put into place over the last 20, 30 years. So fast forward to last year, and the Kansas Department of Agriculture, who is a cooperating technical partner, I may say the term CTP, it stands for Cooperating Technical Partner with FEMA. So what they do is they administer FEMA's program in Kansas. They think there's value added by working with the state and the state advocating on behalf of their communities rather than communities having to work directly with FEMA. So KDA initiated and completed a discovery project with base level engineering, or BLE, for the entire Cimarron watershed, which included Liberal. In February of 2023, these floodplains were first presented to Liberal, and those initial results looked really bad and really scary, and most importantly, very, very inaccurate. And so at that time, city manager, city staff started talking to KDA about what can we do, this doesn't make any sense. And that's where Benish was engaged to help kind of address these issues. We've done this work all over the state of Kansas, but really all over FEMA Region 7 and in a broader area. And so we were somewhat familiar with this kind of problem, and we got engaged. So through a scoping effort with the city and city manager, the city staff, we talked about a number of issues with these maps. There have been a bunch of drainage-related improvement projects that have been done over the course of the years to help improve the flooding situation in Liberal that were not captured in this base-level engineering project that was done by one of the state's contractors. It didn't account for any of the storm sewer infrastructure, so any of the water that goes underground, it just ignored that. It was just, the modeling was very poorly refined. It just didn't have a level of detail that was needed to accurately reflect what happens in the city. And as a result, you got these floodplains that didn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I guess I want to back up just a little bit. This map that you're looking at, what this depicts is a combination of your current floodplains on your current effective map and this first step of base level engineering where they were moving towards new effective mapping. So if you look at this, the way to interpret it is anything in yellow was previously in the floodplain, and these maps would indicate that it would still be in the floodplain. Anything in green, which you see there's not very much green, is stuff that is currently in your floodplain that these maps indicate should come out of the floodplain. And the red, which is obviously the most concerning, and Liberal is covered in red in this map, is anything that is not currently in your floodplain, and if this project would have gone forward as it was, it would come into the 100-year floodplain, meaning that there would be serious insurance impacts to the citizens, as well as flexibility for development and a host of other issues. So it was really bad. So working with the city, we developed a project scope to collect some new topography for those drainage projects that were done. We did that using a drone LiDAR machine, LiDAR light detection and ranging, but essentially what it means is we remapped the ground surface for the areas of those projects. And you see in the little thumbnail down there to the right, all of those areas that are in pink are areas that we flew the drone over for drainage projects that were done and collected new topography so we could more accurately map all the channel improvements that were done, all of the detention improvements that the city have done, and capture all that in the new modeling. Second thing we did is field collection of the stormwater drainage network, those items that are in yellow, which is not your entire system, but it makes up the majority of the larger conveyance structures within the city that move stormwater from one place to another. And so we did field collection of all that. And then from there, what we did is we developed an entirely new H&H model. It's basically a model that ultimately models rainfall, runoff, and how that water moves over the ground to establish new water surface elevations. All of those things in bold that I just talked about are things that FEMA and the Department of Agriculture, utilizing FEMA funding, they typically don't fund, can't fund, say they can't fund. So by doing this project yourself, we were able to capture all of this information that was available that helped us reduce the size of the floodplains and get something that was much more accurate. And then ultimately what our scope was is to draft new floodplains that could be ultimately updated for new flood insurance rate maps. So what I've got here on, I think it would be your left, is again the same image you saw before of the previous floodplain. And then what I've got on the right is what our new modeling reflects using the same color scheme. So Anything that's green and yellow is something that is currently on your flood insurance rate maps. Anything that's red and yellow is what's proposed to be on the flood insurance rate maps. And again, red is new stuff coming in. Green is stuff would be coming out, and yellow is stuff that was there before and will still be there. Now, it might be at a slightly different water surface elevation, but nevertheless, it has the same coverage. We've had some pretty detailed discussions with city staff. In fact, after we showed them the first cut of this, we came back out, and there were some areas that they had some concerns about. And we did some more data collection. We did some refinement on the models. We made some changes. We looked at some areas that they didn't think we had quite right, and we made some adjustments and made a second round and a third round of these. And I think we've ultimately got them to a point where I don't know that anybody thinks they're perfect, but I think what city staff has conveyed is that it's more realistic, that it reflects those areas that are in yellow and red are areas that when it does rain a lot, those are areas that flooding does occur. And so it's a much better representation. I think there's pretty good buy-in from the city on that. Now, we'll say these aren't final. They need to go through an independent technical review process, but I'm pretty confident on the path that we're on, and I'll talk about that here in just a little bit. Any changes that occur will be relatively minor. You wouldn't see them at this scale. So it is too soon to zoom in on this map and look at it on a house-by-house level in terms of how this impacts each individual citizen. It's too soon for that, but it's not too soon to say this gives a very good indication of what these changes might look like as we move forward. So again, this just same image on the left, that what we call changes from last effective firm, changes since last firm, the draft floodplains. We're proposing to keep the same zone designations as before. AE typically stands for a very detailed study. A, in a lot of cases, stands for a more approximate study. In this case, all of your modeling is detailed enough that it could all be mapped as AE. The reason we've proposed to leave it like this with the city, and this decision doesn't have to be made for months, maybe 6 months to 9 months, but the reason we've proposed to leave it like this is it ultimately just gives the city more flexibility in terms of how changes can be done going forward. The more detailed we make them, the less flexibility you have, and it doesn't affect insurance rate from an individual citizen, whether it's AE or A. The insurance rates are the same, the building requirements are the same, but it does allow for more flexibility. The rule is, though, we can't make it all A. Once you go AE, you can never go backwards. That's a FEMA rule. And so that's why we do have some AE, but we're not proposing to convert the rest of it. Okay, same map, one more change, and I just want to point this out. We haven't really talked about this, but on your current maps, there are also what I would call moderate risk floodplains, 500-year floodplains that are larger. I haven't showed what's on your current maps, but they're much more extensive than what's being shown now. These orange floodplains are what I would call advisory floodplains. There are no insurance requirements associated with them. There are no building restrictions associated with them unless you implement them as a city, which that would be something that your governing body would do if you chose to do so. So they're really just advisory floodplains. The only time these orange floodplains would ever come into effect is if you were taking federal funding for critical infrastructure improvements. So federal funding for a water treatment facility, a wastewater treatment facility, a school, fire station, police station, things where you would take federal funding. At that point, if you were in these areas, you would simply have to show how you're going to flood proof up to that level. It's not a building restriction. It's not something that would prevent the use of those federal funds. You would just have to show, when taking federal funds, how you would address flooding from those advisory floodplains. So that is really the only restriction that goes on with those. So I think the first takeaway that I would like you to have is the significance of the change. I mean, that's a big change in terms of where we've gotten to through all of this refined work that we scoped and did. And again, a lot of this is stuff that FEMA would not have funded. And so this slide sort of just captures that. Again, we were able to collect that new topography with a drone that would not have been done by FEMA. The same with the survey of the stormwater network. We've done this additional analysis, and ultimately, we've significantly improved the modeling. So we've got this draft floodplain, we've got two paths forward, and we've been talking to Rusty about this for a few months now. The first way is to incorporate this modeling into the countywide study. And so one of the things that we do is we are one of the state's floodplain mapping contractors. We're one of three. The one that did your first round of this was one of the states, and they're no longer one of their three floodplain mapping contractors. I've been doing this for the state for about 17 years through a couple of different companies, but I've been managing this contract for them for about 17 years now. If we do this, what would happen is the state already has the funding to move this forward. There would be no additional cost to the city of Liberal. And it ultimately, your data would get rolled into their project and it would go on into that timeline. And I'll show you what that would look like in just a second. This is the path that I'm recommending, not necessarily from a cost perspective, although I'll talk about that in just a second, but more so because we know the reviewers, we've worked with them. I mean, they're gonna find something in our modeling that probably needs to be updated. But they're reasonable, and most importantly, they understand Western Kansas. The project manager for the reviewer lives in Cimarron, so they understand Western Kansas. The second path forward is we could do a LOMR. This would be one of the biggest LOMRs that FEMA allows. The city would be required to fund it, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But what concerns me the most is the reviewers for this sit on the East Coast. They've never set foot in Kansas, much less Western Kansas, and they don't understand how water moves. They're used to anything with 3 square miles of drainage, has water with a base flow that flows all the time. They just don't understand, and so to educate this on the modeling and the back and forth would be pretty extensive, and we've already had some of those discussions, and it got kind of concerning. The other thing is, and I want full transparency here, when Rusty and I talked about this at the beginning, he said, well, if you take this data and do a LOMR for us, what's it gonna cost? And I said, I think it's gonna cost about $50,000. I gave him a cost estimate months later, and I said, it's more complex, there's a lot more. I gave a cost estimate for $89,000, and I think he said, what's up, but maybe a little bit more strongly than that. So we've had some discussions about that, and honestly, it's grown into a large project. There's a lot of complexity in the models. There's a lot of things we would have to explain. And just in talking to about this project with some of the LOMR reviewers, it's got me really nervous. So we've had a lot of conversation. I think that what I'm recommending, and I think where Rusty's at now, pending you all's agreement, is that we move forward and incorporating it into the countywide study. So what does that mean? If we do that, the original timeline that this project was on, if you look at the top timeline, when in 2023, the KDA and FEMA did this BLE project. Their plan was to take that and in 2025 update it in what they call data development. It's an individual funding cycle and it's an individual year. And they would update it some, they would come out, they would do some meetings and ultimately try and get buy-in. And then they would have another funding cycle where they produce preliminary maps. And then they would have a final funding cycle where you go through what's called post-preliminary process. That includes all of the community's due process where you have your appeals period. There's a 90-day appeal period required by statute that every citizen in the community has to appeal these maps. There is a 6-month adoption period. It's the map adoption period where it's essentially pencils down, a term from way back. We don't use pencils, but where that gives you the ability to get your ordinances updated and ultimately adopt these maps. So 3 different funding periods that would have been left in this project, and the first one wouldn't have been initiated till 25. When the city started talking to the state about bringing Benish in to do this mapping, and the state said, well, then we'd like to get Benish to take Seward County forward because the other contractor was not going to be involved in anything in the county anymore. they got FEMA to agree to accelerate the funding schedule by 1 year. So that data development slid forward by 1 year. What's happened since is we've got these draft floodplains. We've talked about them with the city. We've had Kansas Department of Agriculture involved in those discussions, and even FEMA in some of those. And they've seen these floodplains and they've seen the progress that the city's made, and they said, okay, so now the state has got FEMA to agree to fund those next two phases, the purple and the green phases, as a single phase. So that funding is in place and it's ready to go. And so by doing those two things, we've essentially accelerated this project schedule by about 2 years. So where previously they were looking at effective maps very into 2028, early 2029, now if we go down this path, we're looking at effective maps by the end of 2026. So that's a pretty significant change in time frame, and that's the other thing I kind of want you to take away is that by funding this, not only have you made the maps much more accurate than what they would have been, which directly benefits all of your citizens, it benefits future development, it benefits all those things. We've also accelerated the timeline in terms of bringing these new maps forward by approximately 2 years if we go down this route. So with that, I think I just threw a lot of information at you really quickly. I would be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Maps were real bad. We spent $200,000 and maps were real good. And instead of spending another $90,000, it doesn't guarantee us that FEMA will accept or accelerate. We recommend tying this into the KDA project with the county and taking our 2-year gain and having much better mapping than what we had before.
And one thing I want to point out, if we do this, you're not losing any control. The state will come out and do a flood study review meeting. Typically, that's with city staff. City commissioners could be a part of that. They will come out and do a public open house prior to the maps ever going preliminary, so when they're still in this work stage. So if individual citizens, and typically how that's done is work with you on a venue, set up from like 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock, so we kind of span that 8 to 5 kind of work day, and so people that are getting off work at 5 still have a couple hours to come in. Typically set up workstations to where it's a one-on-one, because most people come in and they say, I want to see my house, I want to see my property. They don't care about the big picture as much as how this impacts them individually. So at that point in time, we zoom in on their home, we explain to them what it means. If they're in the floodplain currently and coming out, we have people there that are able to talk to them about what they need to do when these maps go effective so that they can potentially get the insurance requirement removed from their home. Or if they want to keep insurance, they most certainly can, but they can get a much reduced rate, so we talk them through that process. If they're on the other side and they're coming into the floodplain, we talk to them about potential things they could do. If they're right on the cusp, we talk to them about the LOMA process and how that can work. So that's where we can deal with community on an individual basis. And then, once these maps go into preliminary, there's still all that due process, that 90-day appeals period. So what I want to communicate is that you don't give up anything, you don't lose any control at this point in time by going through this. We've got the engineering done. You've got it done to the standard that you all wanted to have it done to. And now it's a process, and we've got to go through the same process. It just looks different. And again, the reason I'm recommending it is because the people that'll be doing these reviews, they understand Western Kansas, and that is huge.
I remember the main reason we were even looking at the LOMAR was because of the timeline. It seemed like we had gone through the process, and then the maps still weren't going to be ready until 28. But with the accelerated timelines, I think your recommendation is definitely
And as a byproduct, you can take advantage of using federal funds administered through the state to do this process instead of funding it yourself. And unfortunately, if you had chosen to go through the LOMAR process, they can't divert that funding over. So that's just an added benefit that at this point you get to participate. You don't give up any participation, but you're done paying for it. You're basically spending your time attending meetings. and providing feedback. Other questions?
I think that's,
Well, thank you very much.
no, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd say on that point, is there at least a consensus from the commission to go forward under the incorporation to a countywide study as he's outlined? Is that, everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
I'm in favor.
Okay.
Okay, you
All right,
have your
thank you.
consensus. Thank you. Moving on to item number 10, Liberal Recreation Gym Improvements.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for a moment of your time tonight. With the roof project about to kick off, the Recreation Department is currently looking to upgrade its scoreboards. We've had some issues with the controllers and some technical difficulties in the boards itself. So we're looking to enhance the whole operations of it, from going from a light bulb system to an LED scoreboard. These are going to be more reliable models. They're going to be wireless, and you're going to be able to pop with the red LED lights. So what we're doing, the staff is recommending going with Varsity scoreboards to replace the current ones we have, and not to exceed $8,750. Funds would be utilized from the Liberal Recreation Facility Donation Fund.
So free scoreboards.
Free scoreboards is what I'm
I like
saying. Two of them on the east and west side. We'd like to get this done before basketball, volleyball, and indoor soccer get going the next 90 days.
You can get it done that fast?
We can do it. If approved. Let me add that in there. Sorry. Any questions on the scoreboards? They're exact same size as the old ones, they're just newer.
Well, I'll make a motion that we purchase 2 replacement scoreboards from Varsity Scoreboards in an amount not to exceed $8,750.
Second.
A motion by Vice Mayor Parsons and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 11, Apex discussion.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name's Barrett Thomas. I'm with Apex Clean Energy. I promise not to take up more than about 15 minutes of your time, but we're excited about this potential agreement of purchasing your wastewater. And so I'll start with introducing the team. My name's Barrett Thomas. I'm from Eagle Lake, Texas originally. I've been with Apex about a year. Before joining Apex, I was in the United States Army for 20 years as an infantry officer. My last assignment was at Fort Hood, Texas. I came to Apex through their Hiring Our Heroes program, where they basically interned me for about 3 months, and then so I love what I'm doing now. Dave Savage is our vice president. He does the Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas region. He couldn't be here today. Ashley Cotting is our senior manager for the Green Fuels Commercial Division. But I do have with us today Ms. Faith Tyler and Anna Ritchie. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. Faith Tyler, Director of Project Development for Apex. I've been with Apex a little over 9 years, directly focused on renewable scale, working alongside Barrett and other developers in Texas, Oklahoma, and the Kansas region. So happy to be here.
Good evening. I'm Anna Ritchie. I'm a Senior Public Engagement Manager with Apex. I've been with Apex for about 3 years, and I work with our team in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas.
And we do have Chris Knapp and Ray, if y'all want to introduce yourself right quick. They're our representatives here in the field in the region. So.
Yeah, we just support all the work that's going on, Ray and I do, and happy to be here.
Yeah. And Ray. Okay, he's here. We're the team. So we are Apex. What is Apex? We're a full-service clean energy power producer. So we do everything from, hey, it's a good idea to put a renewable energy site here, to down the road once it's built, operating it, maintaining it, and running the facility. We're based out of Charlottesville, Virginia, where we have approximately 400 people on the entire team. We have a Texas Panhandle, Kansas team that consists of about 9 different developers that work here in the area. We're an American company, so we're 100% American-owned, started in 2009, founded by 2 individuals. One of them, one of the CEOs was a Navy veteran, and our current CEO is also an Army veteran who was a West Point graduate 5 years. So we're 100% American-owned. That's the bottom line there. As a clean energy company, this slide's got a lot of numbers on it, 65 gigawatts. That's how much power we currently have under development in our whole portfolio, things that we're looking at. We have built and constructed 8.6 gigawatts worth of energy, so that's currently producing power today. The other numbers are big, showing carbon offsets, the amount of money that we've, the size of projects that we've built. But the bottom line is we have a lot of experience in the renewable energy space, in solar, wind, battery storage, and now getting into green fuels. So we've been doing this for some time, pretty well. We do everything, as I said. We're an in-house subject matter experts that can take care of just about everything. So from good idea to have a wind farm here or a solar field here, to doing the finance to build, because these are expensive projects, getting them constructed, and then actually owning, managing the assets, operating them long-term. We do all of that. So that's just, again, that's what we do. As far as our history, so we started out as a wind energy company in 2009. And we did wind until about 2015, if you see the chart there, about 1,600 megawatts from 2012 to 15 alone. It was all wind. In 2016, we started doing some wind with Phantom Solar, which I'll discuss in a slide following this one. And now we've diversified our portfolio, and we're producing 1 gigawatt to 2 gigawatts. That's now our goal for annual production. You see, in 2022, we took a small break, and that was when Ares did an investment in the company, a majority stake. And so that then allowed us to own these projects outright rather than having to develop them and then sell them. So now our motto is that we keep the projects through the end. If you look at 2 examples of our projects I'd like to share, the first one is Plug Power. So Plug Power is where we co-developed a renewable energy and green hydrogen project with Plug Power. So the wind facility is in Graham County, Texas. We did the wind development and partnered with Plug. It's currently being constructed now. And so it was first in its class, that size, first green hydrogen done here in the United States. At the time, that was in 2021 when we finished that project with them. So we've done some work in the hydrogen space already. Another example, one of our projects is Fort Cavazos, Texas. So there we worked with the Army, the Defense Logistics Agency, and we have basically 15 megawatts of solar that are there on Fort Hood proper. And in Cotton Plains, it is a 50 megawatt wind project that ties together to provide Fort Hood with all the power that they need for that base. So we've done all sorts of those projects where we're tying technologies together. These projects are expensive. So a large wind project can be anywhere from $600 million to just shy of $1 billion, depending on the size. So this is just to show the types of folks that we have worked with in the past to bring these projects to fruition, because they do involve a lot of capital. So on the left there, you've got some lenders that we have worked with before. On the right, some of our select tax equity partners. But we know how to we have the relationships to be able to bring these projects through. And we've done it all across the country. So you can see we've got projects. These are that we either own, we have sold, or are under current active development. Lots of them across the country. And you can see Texas and Illinois, there's some focus areas, but we've done it almost everywhere. And here in Kansas, in the Sunflower State, we've done 2 projects, the Neosho Ridge project and the J-Wind project, which were completed in 2020 and 2021. So we have done renewable wind energy projects here in Kansas, so we have that experience also to be able to tie together for this project that we're looking to do here in the future. And Apex goes beyond the megawatt. So in addition to just producing power, which that is our bread and butter, but when Apex comes to do a project, it's a long-term relationship with the community that we're in and where we're developing. So environmentally, we're offsetting the CO2 emissions, but economically, we're investing in the local communities where we build, we hire, we do as much hiring locally as we can when we're constructing these projects. They offer long-term jobs. Socially, we have a local vendor program where we utilize local vendors to inject the funds into the economy as much as we can locally where the projects are. I want to talk green hydrogen just a little bit if you're unfamiliar with green hydrogen in the process. So what we're looking to do, and we don't have all this sorted out, right? This is step one. It's a long process to develop a hydrogen energy project. This is new. But our game plan here is that we have a wind resource. We've got great wind resource in this area. We've got a solar resource in this area. So we take that energy from the wind, the sun, and batteries, because the wind's not always shining, and the wind's not always blowing, and the sun's not always shining. So the batteries can help sometimes even that out. We're going to use that power to go into our electrolysis and our green fuels production facility. So there, the water from the wastewater treatment plant, so the toilet and wastewater, meets up with the electricity, and we got H2 and we got a hydrogen and oxygen. The electrolysis procedure is an electrical current going through, and it's going to split the hydrogen and the oxygen. We'll allow the oxygen to go. We'll capture the hydrogen. We'll compress it. There's different things we can do with the hydrogen. It can be used as a fuel there, and as you see in the heavy industries, we can use it for cement, aluminum, in the steel business. Someday down the road, there are cars currently that do run off hydrogen. We're not there really large scale yet, but it's a possibility. Also, another avenue we could use the hydrogen is in ammonia production, which is NH3. A lot of hydrogen there. For fertilizer, and in the shipping industry, they use ammonium also. So that's the Apex plan on what we'll do with this, how we capitalize on the hydrogen. Water procurement is always a concern, especially here in Kansas, in Texas, Oklahoma. Water is absolutely a concern. So these are just some comparatives. There's 2 slides to give you an idea of how much water will be consumed in this project. So that's Kansas agriculture in a year uses. This is millions of gallons per day. These are numbers for comparison. You see the thermoelectric power is using about 816 million gallons per day. There's golf courses in all of Kansas. A 2,000-acre farm with a pivot steer irrigation is going to utilize about 2.6 million gallons per day. And what a 1 gigawatt electrolyzer, which is about the scale we're looking at, right? Depends on the water, the resource we can secure, about 1.7 million gallons per day. So are we using water? Absolutely. This does use some water. That's why one of our values at Apex is sustainability. And that's why we want to use the wastewater, which is otherwise not being utilized. It's an opportunity for both the city and for Apex here to use that resource. Another comparison is the hydrogen economy of 2050, which is the Department of Energy. It's a goal to offset some of our greenhouse gas emissions and to add hydrogen as a fuel source to the country. And in that economy, you can see the amount of water that's still going to be used compared to other industries is just, it doesn't show up on the radar. It's a blip. I'll finish off with 2 slides on the benefits to the community. So Apex is absolutely, again, wanting to be involved in the community when we have a project. We're long-term partners. The agreement we're looking to do with the city here is a 30-year with 2 10-year extensions. So that's a long-term agreement, and Apex is vested in the community. So one of our core values is sustainability. The Apex Conservation Grant injects money and funds into the community for projects approximately $1,000 per megawatt to projects that we own and operate. That money is utilized here in the community for projects that the community would like to do. An example we just did in 2021 here in Kansas was $198,000 that we awarded to Ducks Unlimited to restore some acquired croplands, bring back native grasses, et cetera. So that's something we look forward to doing also. And this is the last chart here, but the community big benefits of a gigawatt green hydrogen facility. So what does it bring to the community? As you can see there highlighted, a gigawatt facility has the ability to bring up to $190 million in property taxes, close to $600 million to the schools, landowner payments close to $500 million, the water payments close to around $90 million. It'll create 1,600 jobs, and that's on the low end of jobs that'll be created during the construction period, because again, this is hydrogen, wind, solar, the whole deal. and then about 185 long-term jobs from the facilities that would be produced. And so the bottom line is, we wanted to introduce ourselves as Apex. We look forward to this opportunity with the city. We thank you for the discussions we've had so far. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions now, currently, from the mayor and commissioners, or from the citizens, or at any other time. So, but that's all we have. Been any of your questions?
Do you have any questions?
So to be clear, the water typically goes out to Arcalan to fill the ponds. That's gonna get diverted. We've taken steps to ensure that we have pond 1 and 2 that are continue to be filled and can continue to be used. The other 6 or so, I can't remember exactly how many additional ones we have, would lose their water access because it would be going to Apex. So we have taken planning steps to ensure that the wildlife and the there's a better word for bird watchers, but the bird watchers are continue to have a place to go, that it's intact, it's accessible. No one is really losing anything. The citizens get an enormous payoff. You guys get 6 to 7 meals a year of flexibility with the additional revenue, and we continue to put the water to most sustainable use that we can. Did I say anything incorrect there?
Well, I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Barrett, I got a question. If you were to build the kind of, if this were to happen and you were to build this kind of facility today in dollars, how much dollars would a facility like you've outlined cost, and also what would be the time frame as far as how long it would take to actually put that together and get a facility like that built?
Great question. I can't give you an exact number. I can.
Right.
It's going to take about close to a gigawatt of wind. It's going to take close to 1,000 megawatts of wind power ish. These are all ballpark numbers. And it'll take maybe about 600 megawatts of solar. We know those ballpark figures, but I wouldn't be comfortable giving. It'll be in the billions for sure, $1 billion plus to do it. But I couldn't give you an exact number of what it'll cost. And the timeline to do this. So normally a wind project, when we're developing a wind project, we like to have about 5 to 7 years to develop a wind project alone. Just a 500 megawatt run-of-the-mill wind farm. Because there are regulations, we have to acquire lands, with landowners. We have no eminent domain authority, so we've got to have individuals who are willing to lease us their land for this time period. So in addition to just getting the wind farm set up, which would normally take us 5 to 7 years, and a solar project similar, now we've got the hydrogen facility and how we're going to do it, and the regulations to do this, because this will be first of its kind in Kansas. We're anticipating that it'll take us anywhere from probably 5 to 10 years. 5 on the super aggressive, we get really lucky time frame. 10 on the later end. We hope to have it somewhere in there, but that's why we're asking for a 10-year option to allow us that developmental period to make the project come to fruition. Because we need the latitude to see, can we get the thing running? I mean, this is not something that's done very frequently. It's absolutely new.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that is an important question with your conversation. I believe in the next meeting, we may bring the contract for the wastewater. The importance of that is you can't begin any of the other steps until that step is complete, correct?
That's correct. This is step one, right? Step one, because there's not enough capacity on the grid for a project like this, so the hydrogen and the water, securing the resource, sustainably securing the resource. This is step one, and this allows us to then go forward and keep moving. That's correct. Yes, and so, we're asking to vote for approval on it at your next meeting. And again, the terms we're happy to share with, we prefer to keep them confidential to the group, but we're happy to share them with all you making the decision. And I can talk around ballpark numbers, but yeah.
I think all your information answers just about every question anyone could have.
Yeah, this was a really good presentation.
We
All right,
we
thank
picked the 27th to give people time to call you and complain and ask additional questions. So instead of just springing it on you tonight, that's why we're waiting till the 27th. Lance reviewed the contract and sent it back, and then made some more revisions, which I owe to you. tomorrow, but by the 27th, we should have that agreement hammered out that we're comfortable presenting to you for approval.
Okay, can I ask one question? So that 5 to 10 year range, that would be the earliest you would start taking affluent water?
That's correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. So the development period, pretty much the only thing that's being done during that time is we're securing land, we're securing all the other resources, maybe doing a water test to just maintain quality, some surveying, but that's it. We don't start pulling water until probably about the 5-year term if we're being aggressive and we're getting after it. But yeah, we will 100% keep the city informed every step of the way. Yeah. There'll be constant communication.
Barrett, I'm just out of curiosity. There's not another facility like this in the state of Kansas. Why did you guys focus in on, say, Liberal's a good option for us?
You've got a great wind resource right out here that we know. The sun's shining. We got sun, we got wind, and then we started looking for places that had a larger population that would produce wastewater. Because again, we want to do this sustainably, and Liberal was kind of a good spot that our whole team here helped to find. Right, it's certainly a team effort. It wasn't one person, but as we just started looking around, and then we started talking to our economic development folks and here in the county, like Eli, and we're like that we think this would be a good location.
Thank you.
Well, I'll say, we appreciate the interest and we'll certainly do everything we can to make sure that this is a successful project and I mean, you're talking about $1 billion invested in our local economy. I don't see, I can't think of anything more exciting on the economic development side for sure. And we appreciate your interest and we'll certainly cooperate in any way we can.
Excellent, thank you.
Speaking for myself, I don't think I'm going too far astray by saying that.
No,
I don't think so.
we're very excited.
Awesome.
It's very,
We are
very
too. We're
exciting.
exceptionally. We got high hopes here. Absolutely.
Yep, as always, if you need anything, just let us know.
Okay.
We'll
We will do.
continue those conversations.
And any other questions, please don't hesitate to contact myself or any of the team here. We're happy to answer them at any time. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Moving on to item number 12, CID discussion.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Damian Denmark. I work with DQ LBK LLC, which is a franchise, an approved franchisee for Dairy Queen. I am coming today, to speak with you about the exciting opportunity for Dairy Queen to expand into Liberal and to also ask for a consent opportunity as Dairy Queen looks to expand into Liberal, Kansas. So DQ LBK LLC is a local group of the DeVellin family who have been in Liberal now for the past 20 years. They're no strangers to the community. They've served in the community alongside those 20 years. Dwayne, who is one of the managing partners, has been a Liberal Police Department. He has worked for there full-time for 6 years, and the last 2 years, he has been a part-time police officer. Dwayne is also a member of Fellowship Baptist Church, where he has served as a trustee, where he serves on the board for the Christian school, as well as founded various different organizations, and has worked with USC 480 with their beef processing facility, Hat Creek Butchery, which just opened here in Liberal a few weeks ago. Working with USC 480 on their Farm to Table program to provide fresh ground beef to students here in Liberal. With this, I am asking Commission for the approval to allow Mayor Laura and Rusty Vernado to have consent to negotiate the incentives on behalf of DQLBK LLC, which is Dwayne and Amanda DeWellen, for this project. I am also asking on behalf of something that's really new to the community in western Kansas that's not been done in the area. So we're asking essentially for a $350,000 loan for a CID that is repaid through the CID. So essentially, in comparing to the RHID, which you provide funds up front for the housing development, this CID will help cover the cost of the initial startup for the development of this project. I have worked with Dairy Queen, I've worked with different economic development firms, I've worked with Polsinelli Law Firm over the last few months to kind of how to identify an aggressive approach to what economic development looks like. We have completed the same verbiage in different agreements within the metro, one being the city of Olathe, city of Overland Park, city of Lenexa, and you probably think to yourselves, well, those are in the metro. That's normal. But what I think when it comes to that is you have those cities that are being aggressive with each other to grow their retail footprint in their town, and they're willing to sacrifice, willing to give within cost. And I think of the same thing of how it translates to within the city of Liberal. You have Liberal, Dodge City, and Garden. Garden has set the tone to say, I want to be the retail capital of Western Kansas, and they are leading that. This is the opportunity for Liberal to come in and set a precedent of how they can be aggressive in providing that structure and setting the standard for retaining, recruiting new retail development. As you see in front of you, I have given you a few packets. In those packets, they outline several attachments, one being the site plan. So the location proposed for this is 310, next to 310 West Pancake Boulevard, which is Fellowship Baptist Church. The land will be just west of it. The build, total project of the cost is just under 1.9 million. The developers, which is also the franchisees, are putting up their own cash as well as financing the project through First National Bank in Colorado. So as you can see in some of those projections that we've given you, it's a very aggressive. The numbers on those sales sheets, again, are from smaller communities that service Dairy Queen in Colorado and in Indiana. On there, you would see the projected sales for full years 1, 2, and 3, and can see there is an aggressive increase of minimum 9 to 10% year over year. Those numbers are put together with the Kansas Small Business Development Center, with the Capital Access Manager, Mr. Alan Eichenberg. Alan has been a Liberal quite a few times. He works well with the Seward County Development Corporation, the Seward County Development Corporation of Kansas SBDC affiliate. Also, you'll find in there is an SIR report. So an SIR report was completed by the engineering firm just last year that Dairy Queen chose. So they worked with our planning, they worked with myself when I was in the role, and as well as the city manager to go over the cost analysis of the property, because this is their land. It's in a floodplain zone, as we identified today. There's a cost of moving utilities, working with our KDOT and determining entryways. I've been meeting with them regularly over the last 3 months with Ron Hall to present this opportunity to become a destination spot. Dwayne and his family has worked hard in getting thus far. The process was a very long process that we worked with last year. I've worked with them the last year and putting together a business plan, finding the right opportunities, having those conversations with KDOT, and just building those relationships. So again, I am asking for permission for the city commission to approve a conversation allowing Jose Lohr and Rusty Vernado to at least consider to look at the incentives of the CID. As you can tell, we're proposing a 1% CID, which will be repaid back to the city of Liberal for the upfront loan. Also on that, if you look at the forecasted sales and the projections, based off my math, and I did go to school in Arkansas, so I might be a little bit off. Based off my math, that's about 16 years, give or take, the payback, which would leave the remainder, again, Arkansas math, 6 years, that CID would be reverted to DQ LBK LLC. I wish I would have picked the LLC name. That's a lot. So I'm going to open it up if there's any questions that I can answer. And just to clarify, I'm not expecting to have an answer tonight. My goal is to obviously get the conversation on the table. Liberal has an opportunity to be a retail destination. I preached that for the time I was in Liberal, and I truly do believe that. But right now, the cost of goods, the cost of building, what other cities can offer as far as the draw, being close to distribution centers and being close to housing and people, you have to figure out, how do we become aggressive in recruiting? What does that look like? City of Liberal, from the 1 cent sales tax fund, where we're proposing these funds come from for the $350,000. One of the priorities is economic development. I believe this fits well as we're choosing to become an anchor essentially on the south side of town. A lot of people indirectly have made comments about, why should we have a Dairy Queen on the south side of town? No one would ever go to the south side of town. Well, historical data shows specifically that location, just to give you a rough estimate. In the last year, as of August 8th, so 12 months, there's been over 2 million people that have passed 310 West Pancake Boulevard. Now, are all those people stopping at Dairy Queen? I think Dwayne hopes so. But according to historical data that fits the demographics with the city of Liberal and rural communities that have this location, and again, bear in mind, the nearest Dairy Queen is about 60 miles away. Garden has a Dairy Queen, but it's not a full service. This will be a full service grill and chill, so you'll have your ice cream and you'll have your food. The nearest one is 60 miles away, and on the reporting, it's projected to have 15.7 thousand visits a month. That's the low end. Brahms, which is off 83, has roughly average in 2023, 40,000 visits a month. So there's an opportunity for this. And the developer, the franchisee, however we want to classify, is just seeking help, right? They're putting up their opportunity. They're getting a loan. They're putting together their upfront cash. They're working with the SBDC. They're working with the Seward County Development Corporation. We're just looking at that step. I think this is a perfect opportunity to kind of build out that program and what that looks like. We are willing to provide anything to help. I've worked on several of these deals over the last few months in the KC metro area where they're very strategic. Some have been more aggressive than what I'm proposing tonight. I think that I can be of assistance in working with legal and figuring out how we can make this to where the city is still not losing money and not giving away money, but given an opportunity to set the future and set the standard for what growth looks like in Liberal, Kansas. So I'll leave it open for any questions.
So you said you've been working with Pulcinelli, and I'm assuming, just by the fact that you're here, that this is something that's being done in Kansas?
Great question. So since moving to the metro, I've had the opportunity to build quite a bit of relationships. Gilmore and Bell, Pulcinelli, some of the, I would say, heavy hitters in the municipality world, or working with those municipalities. I've consulted with them back and forth in the strategic planning of how do we proceed, what does this look like. At the end of the day, it's just an ask. We think moving forward, this would be something great that the city of Liberal sets forth with standards and guidelines in place. Yes, the development, the goal isn't to move forward. The goal isn't to have the building built and selling its first burger or chicken strip basket December 1, 2024. We always have a goal in mind, and that's a goal to completely 100% finance under this with the franchisees. Just in this assistance, our goal is deviate some of the costs of the investment so we can continue to show and look at future opportunities for growth in Liberal.
Can you mention any of the other cities who have done something like this already?
Yes, so City of Olathe, City of Overland Park, City of Lenexa, Kansas. We are actually in agreement for, again, a more aggressive approach without going into too much detail. So we're entertaining a more aggressive approach. Similar, developer reached out to $4 million investment, asking for a $2.2 million loan. essentially on that loan at a 2% CID repayback. The aggressive side of this is, hey, if the city doesn't recoup their $2.2 million in 22 years, we wipe the debt clean. I'm not asking for that, obviously, because based off the projections and the market that we're in, the city can recoup the cost before the time limit for the CID.
Any other questions? On this part, I've always been a proponent. I always fought for it on the RHID side to see how we could do that. Of course, the RHID has a little bit more guarantee because we have the land as well as the houses. Once they're built, no one can take them, and even if they go under, the taxes are still being charged. So I'm in favor of pushing these new ideas, but pre-funding the CID is definitely an aggressive idea, and I'm in favor of doing that as well. So I think that would be a good tool to have. We'd have to set a limit as well as a guideline for how much we can use, but I think it would be another good tool to have for larger scale businesses. Any CID, you have to have a minimum of 200,000 to start with anyway. So 300,000 or 350 is a good guideline to help one of those businesses. You know, one of my biggest complaints that I remember hearing in the past was kind of our two retail locations in the center of town. Well, they have a CID, but then they did nothing with their parking lot, whether it's because they didn't have the money to do it or whatever happened. I mean, they spent, I think, some of it on some facade, and then they're collecting on that part, but they never actually updated it. The other one, currently where El Rancho is, they had a CID, the original owners. Nothing really got done other than some tar on the parking lot. Then we had new owners come in who went ahead and invested their money, and they're the ones recouping the CID money. But I think having where you can put some upfront costs is not a terrible idea.
And I'll be honest, and you know how I feel about how my reservations, because I certainly haven't made up my mind about this, but doing an RHID is different in scale because you only have a limited number of developers who are going to develop residential property. So that your numbers of doing RHID are going to be they're going to be much lower, much fewer. With retail, I mean, you're looking at literally hundreds of retail operations in the city. And it's sort of, my reservation is sort of like, well, we're sort of picking and choosing who we're gonna do this for, because we certainly can't do them all. I mean, we get roughly between $600,000 and $700,000 a year in economic development right now from the 1 cent sales tax. So, I mean, that's half of 1 year's revenue in that fund. I'm not opposed to it. I would seriously like some creative thinking here on how we might be able to do this. Because, I mean, if we do it for you, which is not a bad idea,
Right.
then there are many, many, many other people who could say, well, you did it for Dairy Queen, why won't you do it for me? So like I say, I think there's some opportunities to be really creative here if we start thinking outside the box. But that's my reservation, is that if we do it for you, then who do we say no to? Because we can't do them all.
For sure, and I take a lot of that into consideration. Again, I look at it from the perspective, you have someone who's local in the community, not necessarily homegrown, but have been in the community, sacrificed himself for the community,
Yep.
working for the police department. The other thing I look at is how many of these developers that are looking that this is their expansion to make another quick buck. And speaking with Dwayne and Amanda, this is generational for them. Dwayne has 4 kids, Amanda has a child, both in liberal, something they want to pass down with them. And another thing on top of that is, how do we set a standard for it? How do we create a game plan and a structure for it, and what that looks like? How do we put the pieces together from working with the SCDC, working within the city commission, and finding those guidelines, so when someone else that's not Dairy Queen, say they're Popeyes, or say they're Five Below, or someone that's looking to expand their presence in Liberal, there is a standard that's set in place that has to meet those thresholds before the commission even considers to approve something like that.
And that's what I'm talking about, we're doing some creative thinking on this, is that we find a way, that, you know, if it's even possible to do that, but find a way that we can set a standard, say, okay, if you can check off all these boxes, then we'll give it some consideration, so.
I think definitely new builds is a good one to put on there for actual growth, instead of just the remodeling side of the CID for existing businesses. The CID itself is already the incentive on that part, but with new growth, I think that would be one of the check marks that would be beneficial.
I had a question for you, and forgive me if I heard wrong, but, so on the CID, then, did you say that does the city start collecting their part right away, or did you say there's 6 years? Did I hear you say 6 years before?
No, so the city will collect, so the first full year in business, we would negotiate the term that the city starts collecting their sales tax immediately. The 6 years comes in play projected. With the sales, it looks like the CID will be repaid back to the city in 16 years, which will leave the remainder years
you
to
said
revert
16
back to
years,
the
yeah.
developer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the city will start recouping costs day one.
I think that would be another good revolving fund to have. I mean, we're working on having a revolving fund for the residential side. It's not a bad idea to have a revolving fund on the commercial side, where we can be the city where, and at least in western Kansas, here's some opportunity to help you while we're trying to grow.
Have we ever had anybody approach the city for a CID for a new development before? Anybody know?
Yes,
How long ago?
it's been a while. I did one when I was sitting in the seat with Polsonelli was the law firm that put it together.
I was just.
It never ended up going through, but yeah, we've been approached by it before.
So what we're asking for right now is just permission for us to let you guys discuss it, not to make a decision, right?
I mean, ultimately, you guys would have to enter into an agreement if the terms were agreed to between the parties.
Which would come back to
But I
this.
don't think there's any harm with, you know,
Exploring it.
Rusty and Jose
Right, I
speaking with
mean-
them about trying to come up with something that is workable and feasible to then present to the commission as a potential way to grant a CID.
I think
Right, that's what you're asking tonight, is for us to let them to explore that, and it would have to come back and it'd have to work for all of us, or for the majority of us.
We're essentially asking you to let us do what we're gonna do anyway.
Instead of killing it, yeah, instead of killing it tonight, yeah.
the only thing on this part
Just giving you a
is,
heads up that they're gonna do this.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you guys have to agree,
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, the majority
It's
have to
okay
agree to it
if
ultimately.
we're okay that you're talking with them about it, yeah.
And
Yeah.
also just to
That was
let
the
everybody
first
know.
That was just being nice about
the
it.
second part is this something that a majority is willing to consider, prepaying a CID? So, I mean, because the first one is having the conversation. The second part is that something this commission's willing to consider? To even know if it's on the board or not.
And Commissioner, I will say, in working some of these deals, city entities have been very strategic in giving out abatements, and CID and any other incentive. Some of those include, funding the developer would give a certain amount to a foundation for the city, install public art, require them to use city services or any other city opportunity or city-funded resources. And that's something that we're willing to comply with as well. I know some of the opportunities to install public art, as well as assisting in other foundations, either the library or the homeless shelter. And Dairy Queen, DQ LBK LLC is willing to assist in that in any way as well. So again, just one of the ways that some of the cities in the metro are being aggressive and some of the requirements they set forth. You have to be involved in the community. We're not just gonna give you money and give you an incentive and you sit there. You have to be involved, join the chamber, donate to the foundation, use city services, install public art.
Ooh, buying local for
for construction of the building?
100%. We've already reached out to some vendors locally to start the bid process. So, and that is a requirement as well with my city and other cities to use local developers and construction companies.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm the first one to say, yeah, I'm okay with both of those stipulations. Yeah, you know, I mean, I'm okay with you guys negotiating, and I'm okay considering it. Using the, you know, being a lender, prepaid CID. So I don't know how to term that exactly, but I'm not opposed to listening to the.
I won't listen to it.
I'm in favor. I think this is more economic development, and I think it's also exciting for families. I mean, to have something new like this, it'll boost morale, more things for our community to do, and I feel like even people passing by will stop more just seeing that there. I mean, I just went to Woodward and turned around, like, I was 15 minutes out just because I wanted Dairy Queen. Not that everybody's like me, you know, but, but like, this is another reason to stop in Liberal.
Commissioners, last thing, you know, wherever we decide and we move forward, this won't be the last time I present. I am working with different franchisees on several projects in Liberal. They're not waiting on this type of incentive. They're just waiting to see what the city of Liberal has to offer for those developments. And some of those are franchise retail restaurant developments that are interested in making its move. Liberal, again, has a perfect opportunity to grow. Compared to other cities in western Kansas, there just has to be more of an opportunity that's strategic for the willingness to invest millions of dollars into a market.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Damien.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 13, the health fair discussion. Technically, I actually asked for this one, so, I think you've set your prices for the health fair, correct?
Yes.
Okay. My thoughts, while I was reviewing the 1 cent sales tax, portion, there needs to be some help in how we continue to develop and help Seward County as well as Southwest Medical Center. And the health fair has been one of the areas where we're getting a lot of interest. And I would like to make a recommendation where we put in at least commit 30,000 for 1,000 visits. I believe last year they had roughly 800 visits, or a little more than 800 visits. They're costing anywhere from $35 plus however much they add with the other tests that they're doing. The hospital is taking a large amount of that. Many of their employees are committed to doing this. And I would like to see if the commission is interested in putting about 30,000. So giving a $30 discount to everybody who comes in for that, the health fair from community development.
So for me, of course, I'm going to be a little biased because
I
I
don't think you can
organize
even
the
vote on
health
it,
fair. But I've been doing a lot of research. I recently did a presentation in Dodge City about the correlation between civic engagement and health equity. One of the things that I found while I was doing some research is Southwest Kansas has the largest rate of uninsured people. This includes people from Liberal, Dodge City, Garden. But here in Liberal, we have a 14.5% uninsured. Garden has 13.6, Dodge City 12.5. So we're the top three when it comes to uninsured. We're starting to see a lot more prevention. But what I'm seeing too when we're running these tests is we're starting to see cancer among younger people. So we are promoting, taking care of yourself, making health a priority. So of course I would be in favor, one, like I said, because I work there, but two, just because it's important and we really do have a lot of people, they don't see a doctor throughout the year. I mean, they don't have the benefit like us when they get sick, they get to go to the doctor. For many people that go to the health fair, this is their one and only chance that they see a doctor. And so just please keep that in mind. Our health fair is growing, like Jose said, last year we did 835 lab draws, but we did more than 2,600 exams. I do anticipate this number will continue to grow just because, like I said, we're doing more outreach and we are doing a lot more exams. But be able to really get that preventative, the lab screenings is what will really help people, and it starts at 35. And for us, maybe 35 doesn't seem like a lot, but when you have 6 children and, you know, you're barely making ends to put food on the table, $35 can be whether you buy a backpack for your children or you come and, like I said, a lot of people see health as like a benefit, like it's a luxury, not something that's a necessity. So that's why I would be in favor.
You're talking about 30 of the 35 is what you're talking about paying, or what'd you say?
Right, covering $30 out of the 35.
Or,
We're just
Yeah.
anything.
yeah, or to me, 35 of the people that need it that wouldn't do it if they had to pay. I mean, I know that I go occasionally because I have no health care, and I decided it's cheaper for me to not have health care than to have it, because if you stay healthy, it's easy. But I don't have any problem paying the $35 myself, so I don't really want $30 that can help somebody else. But I don't know if there's a way to distinguish who needs it and who doesn't. That makes your job harder at the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's easier just
Just do the,
give it a $5, so there's,
you can just abstain and not take the $30.
No, I'm telling her she may want to.
I will abstain.
Okay, thank you.
I just have to get my spill, and like, I mean, I said it from the beginning, I'm a little biased, but
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean-
when they check in, is there a way to determine whether they're a resident within the city limits?
see, this is where it's gonna get hard because not everybody has an ID.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you, I have no appetite for paying for people outside the city limits. If it's our citizens who pay
Unless
the tax dollars, then
Unless we have some kind of list where they could sign up beforehand.
the way I see it is chances are if they're coming from outside of town, they're gonna go ahead and probably eat something here or try and do something in town afterwards. So since this is coming out of the 1 cent sales tax, there's a chance they're gonna go ahead and spend it if they're coming from out of town just for the health fair.
So where are we, Scarlett, within that fund?
In community development, 1.6 million cash.
So it's not gonna drain that fund by
You-
much.
You also could, if this is adopted and implemented, for people that say, no, I don't need to have that assistance, give that to the next individual, they could sign something at the beginning that they want. You know, when they check in, if you guys put parameters on it, such as if they live in the city limits, that they put their address, for example, at least.
They do put their
And,
address on
and
the
then also
packet.
they could put, do you want assistance in payment of this? And then internally, you guys could figure that out that way until the payments are taken care of. That's just an outside the box thought.
Well, and I'm kinda like Jose on the, you know, I mean, people who don't necessarily live in Liberal, if they're coming to our health fair, they come to Liberal for other reasons throughout the year. So they're helping to pay that 1 cent sales tax, and they're helping to fund that. So I guess that doesn't give me as much heartburn if they're not necessarily a resident of Liberal.
Pay for the full amount.
Yeah.
I mean, cause I'll be the second one here. It's a good, example of this commission. I also don't have health insurance, so you have, out of the 5 sitting here, 2 of us without health insurance, so those tests, I mean, I've used them in the past, or sometimes when I get life insurance, so, I think we're quite, an example of what our population looks like. So it would be very good to have something continuous on that, and to just offer it to anybody that wants to come here.
I'm gonna get Medicare before you do, though. So.
Yeah, you will, you have that. I might not make it to
I don't have all the
Medicare.
way. You know, I guess something that, I'm not gonna say Birdie was in my ear or whatever, but so our, employees, their healthcare keeps going up every year though, so just a question, if we're spending 1 cent sales tax to make this available to this, is that like saying anything to our employees about, we're okay with their health expenses going up, but we're gonna help everybody else? Just throwing it out there.
At this point, it would be cheaper for them to go get a lab drawn.
Well,
I was
that's-
gonna say
that's-
it's preventative.
Then to
That's the
go to the
reason I
doctor to
do it,
do
is
it,
I
so.
just, it's $35 for them to tell me I'm still alive, so,
With this, it would be $5.
yeah.
Or that you have cancer
Well,
and you
35
don't.
is cheap, I mean, to me. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of dollars that it would cost if you had to pay for all of it, right? The number's pretty large, isn't it? I mean, I think it's been a good deal for our community forever, that, just the $35, but I don't know. But
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts?
So one of you would have to make a motion to allocate $30,000 from community development to the health fair,
If you want to.
if you want to.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to allocate $30,000 from community development to the health fair to help reduce the cost of lab draws from $35 to $5.
I'll second. I second.
I have a motion by Mayor Lara and a second by Commissioner Landry. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? 4-0, one abstention, motion passes. Okay, moving on to item number 14, city staff.
Keely, will you talk about our meeting today? And the thing on the 20th and the 22nd?
Sure. So just an update on our railroad crossing elimination grant, which is due September 23rd. We've continued to make a lot of progress on different components of the application itself, as well as some of the supporting documentation that we've been working through. You probably have seen, hopefully, that we do have a couple of listening sessions similar to the activity that we did during our town hall. We will have 2 sessions. The first will be on Tuesday, August the 20th, from 6 to 7 p.m. at the library in their basement. And that is a Spanish-speaking session. And then we will have an English-speaking session on Thursday, August the 22nd, 6 to 7 p.m. at the library downstairs as well. So just another way for us to be able to show that we have completed different components of public engagement and to be able to show that there is a lot of public support for a project like this. So we did speak with the Union Pacific folks this morning, really just to get their a few different documents and components that we need to be able to show that UP also supports this. We are making a request of them to help with part of our local match, which is 20%. So far, I have not received our cost estimates, but it will be well over $1 million grant application. So any little bit that we can get from them helps to create a more competitive grant for us. We are also applying to the Build Kansas Fund to be able to help with our 20% match as well. So that's where we're at in the process. We're continuing to work very quickly to get that all done on time.
When do the surveys close?
The surveys close on September the 3rd. We've received more than 700 surveys so far.
Nice.
That's pretty amazing. So that can be found on our website. It's really hard to miss on the main page. It's on our social media as well. So. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keely.
I'll just make a comment really quick. Today I spoke with Hay Rice and Associates. We are nearing the end of our 2023 audit. I feel like that went very smoothly and financial statements are forthcoming here in the near future. So I am very happy and relieved that we are back on a solid schedule for having these things completed by month end of September. COVID kind of threw this schedule back for years, and it's very hard to make up the time to get back on a correct schedule when you have pushed the deadline back for several years and allowed for that. So at some point, we had to make up that time and, in my opinion, have 2 audits in 1 year practically because we needed to get back on track. So very pleased with that. As far as the 2025 budget, it's coming along. We have expenses pretty much done. we're now looking, Kristen and I are looking at how we're gonna do the mill and a couple of things, with revenue generation, and, so that is on track. And I just wanted to give an update on that, so.
Anything, Brad? Okay. Any other city staff? Okay, moving on to item number 15, the city manager's report.
So on the chip seal's ongoing, just a reminder, your car gets towed, you're paying the bill, the city's not paying it. They're not towing it around the corner, they're towing it to their lot. We're gonna, Kristen can look it up, at how much we eat every year in wrecker fees, because people just ignore the work that's being done on the street. So this year we drew the hard line, and you don't move your car, it's getting towed, and it's getting towed at your expense, and, so just a reminder of that. It was on the flyer, we said it a bunch, but we're still gonna get people who are complaining. We do anticipate, a slight reduction in general fund. That don't get excited, that doesn't equal a mill levy reduction until we have the revenues figured and the rollover calculated, but, we have been able to at least keep spending where it is, if not drop it down, an amount. The airport applied for the terminal design grant last week before. My weeks run together, 2 weeks ago, I believe. So with the hope of that being awarded in February for terminal design to be completed, and then next year we'll apply for the construction grant. And finally, Eli, I forgot what MED stands for.
Minority Enterprise Development.
Yes, so you should have got an email forwarded from him about the banquet on September 6th.
Right.
Yep. So please let him know your ticket needs, and we'll go from there. Whatever questions you have.
Okay, no questions. Thank you. Moving on to item number 16, items from commissioners. Dr. Braun?
We're down here today.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the budget. Do we have a projected kind of timeline for when that day's coming for budget session, or?
Early September is the goal. So we usually do it a couple weeks in advance of the budget hearing. So I don't anticipate doing it before the month is over, but I would expect right after Labor Day.
And we're gonna do it the same style, try to make a day of it, and
We have simplified things, so it might go a little faster. There's funds that we don't use that have been eliminated. Some funds have been consolidated, some have been created, so it'll have a little different look, but for the overall, it should be pretty consistent with what you're used to.
we'll have to have that discussion about how many calls we get, businesses wanting to get loans from the city, and decide if we can fit in that schedule or not, huh? It'll be interesting to see, because it kind of gives us an idea if it sparks some interest in whether it falls in our, I guess that'll be for us to decide if it falls in what we can do to make something happen. Because we all know we want it to happen. It's just whether we can or not. But, so I guess we'll know that a little bit when we do that too, I guess, at that time. But
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't have anything. Thanks staff for everything they do. I think I said last time, it's been hot out. Everybody's getting through it, I think, okay. I guess swimming pool is closed now, isn't it, or is it? So we got past that. But just appreciate everything everybody's doing, and keep it going. Thank you. That's it.
Just want to say thank you to all of the staff for all of the hard work, and thank you for all of those that came from out of town to be with us today. I just want to say I'm really excited for all of the projects and all of the momentum. Want to thank you commissioners as well, city manager, everybody who plays a role every single day. But I'm just really excited. I feel like we're finally, not that we're finally making some moves, but now our agenda's a little bit busier, and we're able to accomplish a lot more. So just looking forward to all of the exciting things.
Thank you to all the city staff and for the presentations today. They were wonderful. We appreciate you guys coming a long way. If you did come a long way to come here, we really do appreciate that. To Rusty, as always, thank you. It's been nice having some rain, and the cool weather was nice the other day, and back to 100 degrees today, so there wasn't any rest there. That was miserable. Everybody, be careful. Kids are going back to school this week, and you can see it. They're out there, so just be careful and mindful that little ones are walking to school, and they may not be paying attention, and it may be outside of a school zone, so we just want to keep our little ones as safe as possible, so other than that, that's it.
Okay, well, thank you to staff. Appreciate all you do. Thank you to the folks from Apex. Made it all the way out here and give us a presentation. That's so exciting, the prospect of that project and all that means long-term for the community. Again, if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. Damian, thanks for making a trip out here to talk about this project. Appreciate that, and to the developers for what they're proposing. And that's a great project as well. So, and like Matt said, school's starting up again this week. I noticed the school zones were already the speed zones were already in effect, so be careful. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you to all the staff, especially with everything that's going on this month and the heat that we have to deal with. Went by the splash pads. Those are, the fixtures are in place, so that's a nice update. Well, in one of the parks, not the other. So I'm excited to see that project going on as well. It's great to see quality of life projects, industrial projects. Thank you, Apex, for coming down. And then retail projects, thank you, Damian, as well. I think this meeting with our RHID includes housing, some of the other projects we're doing with solar. This was a perfect meeting to show the progress that we've been having, the conversations we've been having all year. And I'm not sure why we decided this one is a great time to put it all in there, but I think this is a great one to take back with you and everyone to see how much progress, how much work everybody's doing, economic development, city staff, the commission, Rusty, everyone in this community has been putting into to get projects done, to get projects started, and where we're going as a city. I do want to touch really quick on the insurance to try and help employees. The only reason, and I'm all for helping them, but the 1 cent sales tax doesn't really allow us to, because then we'd have to also help the county, the school district. If at any point in time it changes to where we can adjust some of that to the general fund, I would be all for trying to get those costs lowered as well. But hopefully in the future, we can look at how that's a project we can definitely work forward toward, while we're discussing with our brokers on how to do insurance, maybe as a community for all those entities. So it's in the process. It's another project we're gonna be working on, but I hope everyone takes forward that this is a city that's willing to work with everyone. We're willing to move forward, and I'm excited where we're at and where we're going. Item number 17, the vouchers.
Before I make a motion here, I'm gonna say, you're saying this meeting was longer compared to the, 13 minutes and 45? 11 minutes? Okay. And Jose was gone and Jeff was running the meeting, right? So, yeah, you missed the 11-minute
We may have
meeting,
had one or two fewer items to deal with.
Well, this sounds like a more successful meeting, so I'll take that credit too.
Definitely, yeah.
It was definitely quick,
I'll
that
make-
was for sure.
I'll make a motion that we approve the vouchers in the amount of $1,047,226.06.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Vasquez. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? 5-0, motion passes. We are adjourned.